Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's story. Diep just woke up from a deep coma, only to learn that James, the man she trusts, is facing an impossible choice. His secretary is pregnant, and he's being forced to marry her to save his company and his mother. Can Diep handle the truth? Will James's painful secret destroy their love forever? Stay with us to find out what happens next. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to help us reach 1,000 followers. Stay tuned for more dramatic twists and emotional stories like this one. Diep slowly woke up. Her vision blurred, and the quiet room seemed foreign to her. The first thing she felt was James's hand gently resting on her shoulder, a warmth that both comforted and confused her. His face appeared above her, worry etched on his features as he softly spoke, "You're awake now." She blinked, trying to gather her thoughts. "How long?" Her voice was weak, strained. "2 days," James replied quietly. "You've been asleep for 2 days." His tone was soft, yet there was an intensity in his gaze that made her heart flutter with confusion. Was it just concern? Or was there something more he wasn't saying? Diep's mind raced, but she couldn't focus. The room felt small, too confined for her racing thoughts. James, sensing her discomfort, smiled faintly. "Would you like some tea? I'll get you something warm." His voice was steady, but Diep saw the flicker of unease in his eyes. She nodded weakly. "Yes, please." As he turned to leave, Diep couldn't help but watch him, wondering about the moments that had passed while she was unconscious. What had changed in those 2 days? She felt a strange emptiness rising within her, a question she couldn't quite put into words. Her gaze drifted out the window, where the soft rustling of trees in the breeze seemed to offer a moment of peace. Yet, the calm couldn't quiet the storm inside her. Something felt amiss, but she couldn't figure out what it was. Only that she wasn't ready to face it. James moved silently through the room, his actions purposeful yet distant. He went to the kitchen to prepare tea, but his mind wasn't on the task at hand. He kept replaying the events that had led him here, the pressure of the situation weighing heavily on his chest. He hadn't planned for any of this. The betrayal by his secretary, her pregnancy, and the ultimatum she'd given him, it all felt like a storm tearing through his life. To save his company, to protect his family, he had no choice but to comply. But the cost was high. Diep. The woman he had grown to care for deeply. The woman he wanted to be with, but could never truly have. As he stirred the tea, his thoughts turned dark. The secretary had played her hand well, trapping him between a rock and a hard place. If he didn't marry her, the scandal would destroy everything he had worked for. His mother's freedom, his company's future, all of it would be lost. And now, he was expected to choose between his duty and his heart. He paused for a moment, holding the teapot in his hands, looking at the steaming liquid. His grip tightened, and a wave of guilt washed over him. He couldn't look at Diep without feeling that same knot in his stomach, knowing he would soon have to explain the impossible. The secret that had been buried within him would have to come out. And when it did, everything would change. "James," Diep's voice called softly from behind him. "Is something wrong?" Her concern was genuine, and it cut deeper than he had anticipated. He turned slowly, forcing a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Diep sat in the quiet room, the faint hum of the world outside barely reaching her ears. She gazed at the door where James had just left, her mind heavy with questions she couldn't ask. the warmth from the tea did little to ease the unease in her chest. Her thoughts drifted, not to her own pain or recovery, but to the one thing she couldn't forget: hockey. Her heart twisted at the thought of her beloved pet. What would happen to him while she was still bedridden? He was more than just an animal. He was family, her constant companion, always by her side since the very beginning. She could hardly imagine the days without him. But now, in this state, she felt as though she had left him behind. Was someone taking care of him? Would he be all right? Her eyes fluttered shut for a moment, but the image of Hackey's small face, his eyes looking up at her with an understanding she never thought a pet could possess, filled her mind. It pained her to think that he might be left alone, wondering where she was. James, for all his gentleness, had his own burdens to carry. She didn't want to burden him with hers, especially not something so simple yet so important: hockey. She had to trust that somehow things would be fine. But the doubt lingered, heavy like a storm cloud in her heart. She sighed, trying to steady herself, but the weight of her uncertainty only seemed to grow. "I wish I could just be there with him," she whispered under her breath. Later that afternoon, the room was quiet again, save for the occasional clink of the teacup as James placed it carefully on the table in front of Diep. His eyes, once filled with worry, were now veiled in something she couldn't quite place. He had returned, but something about him had changed. The gentle care that had been so evident in his actions earlier was now tinged with something else. Guilt, perhaps, or resignation. "James," Diep started, her voice soft but steady. "What happens next? What happens when I recover? Will everything go back to how it was before?" Her question hung in the air between them, thick and unspoken, the truth that neither of them wanted to face. James avoided her gaze, looking out the window as if searching for the right words in the soft, fading light of the day. I don't know," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I wish I could say it would, but..." He trailed off, his words caught in his throat. "Things are complicated now, more than you realize." Diep leaned forward, her eyes narrowing with confusion. "Complicated? What do you mean? What's really going on, James? You're not telling me something. Is it about your company or your mother?" His silence was all the answer she needed. She could see the weight of it in his eyes. The burden he was carrying, the secret that was slowly suffocating him. It wasn't just about the company or his mother, it was something else, something bigger. "I can't tell you everything," he replied finally, his voice laced with pain. "But I can tell you this. Whatever happens, I don't want to lose you. But I have no choice." He shook his head, the frustration clear on his face. "There are things I can't escape." Diep's heart fluttered, torn between the love she felt and the growing dread that something was slipping away from them both. The silence in the room felt suffocating, thick with unspoken words. Diep could feel the weight of James's confession settle between them like an invisible wall. Her mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of what he had just revealed. She could sense his struggle, his inner turmoil, but she couldn't understand why he seemed so far away, so unwilling to share the full truth. "James," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "What do you mean you have no choice? What's happening? Why are you pushing me away?" James stood, his back to her, hands clenched at his sides. The tension in his shoulders was palpable, as if he were trying to hold himself together. The room felt smaller now, the air heavy with the secrets he had yet to expose. "I wish I could explain everything," James began, his voice rough. He turned slowly to face her, his eyes darkened with regret. "But some things are beyond my control. There's a situation at work, with my company, and my mother. They're in danger." Diep's heart skipped a beat. "Danger? What do you mean?" James paused, his gaze shifting to the window, as though he could find the answer in the fading light of day. "My secretary, she's pregnant, and she's using it against me. She's forcing me to marry her to protect my company and my family. If I don't, my mother, she could lose everything." Diep's chest tightened. The words he spoke hit her like a blow, leaving her breathless. "You're telling me you have to marry her, to save your family, to save your company?" James nodded, his expression pained, as if every word was a dagger in his own heart. "Yes, but I swear to you, it's not because of how I feel, it's a choice I don't have." Tears welled up in Diep's eyes, and she turned away quickly to hide them. She had known something was off, but this truth, this betrayal of trust, it was more than she could bear. Yet she understood the impossible position James was in, and though it hurt more than she could express, she knew she couldn't blame him. I need time," she whispered, barely audible, as the weight of everything settled around them. The next few days were a blur. Diep's recovery progressed, but so did the growing distance between her and James. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, yet neither dared to break the silence fully. She could see it in his eyes, the same torment, the same guilt. But now there was something else too. Resignation. He had made his choice, and even though he loved her, he had to honor the commitment that had been forced upon him. Diep had never imagined it would come to this. To feel so close to someone, yet so far away. The love that had bloomed between them seemed to wither under the weight of circumstances neither of them could control. They shared fleeting moments, small gestures of care, but the space between them was growing, an undeniable chasm that neither could bridge. On the morning that James returned to her room, his face was pale, worn, as though he hadn't slept in days. His eyes, usually warm, now held a depth of sadness that made Diep's heart ache. "I need to leave," James said quietly, standing by the door, his hands in his pockets. "It's for the best. I need to be with her, for the sake of everything, for the company, for my family." Diep's chest tightened at his words, but she refused to let him see her pain. She forced a calmness into her voice, though her heart was breaking. "I understand, James," she said softly. "I understand what you have to do." He looked at her, his expression softening for a moment. "I don't want to leave you," he murmured, "but I have to. I'll never forget you, Diep. Please remember that." As he turned to walk away, Diep's eyes followed him, watching him leave not just the room, but the life they had almost built together. She wanted to call out to him, to beg him to stay, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she whispered under her breath, "I'll always remember you too, James. I'll never forget." With the door closing behind him, Diep sat in silence, her heart heavy with the weight of a love that would never be. Weeks passed. Diep's health improved, though the ache in her heart never quite faded. She spent her days in the small house, keeping herself busy with chores, tending to the garden, and caring for hockey. Life, in its own quiet way, carried on, but it felt empty without James. Every corner of the house held memories of their time together, from the soft conversations to the shared moments of warmth and tenderness. Diep tried not to dwell on what had happened. She knew that James had made a choice, one that, as much as it tore at him, was necessary. She could feel the love between them, but she understood that life wasn't always fair. Sometimes love had to take a back seat to duty. As much as it hurt, she accepted that. One afternoon, she sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Hockey lay at her feet, content and peaceful. She couldn't help but smile at the simple joy of his presence. He was always there for her, always by her side, a constant reminder of the love and loyalty that still existed in her life, even if James couldn't be. Her thoughts drifted back to him. She had tried to move on, but his absence had left an indelible mark on her heart. A part of her still hoped that, one day, fate would bring them together again, but she knew she couldn't wait forever. She had to live her life, to embrace the future, whatever it may hold. "I'll be all right," she whispered to herself, more for reassurance than anything else. And in that moment, as the night wrapped itself around her like a soft blanket, she finally felt a sense of peace. No, everything hadn't turned out the way she had hoped. But life wasn't just about the moments of happiness. It was also about finding strength in the face of adversity and learning to let go, even when it hurt. The lesson, she realized, was simple. Sometimes the heart has to heal in silence. And maybe, just maybe, that silence would bring clarity.
Diệp tỉnh dậy sau cơn hôn mê và phát hiện James, người mà cô tin tưởng, đang giấu một bí mật đau lòng. Thư ký của anh ta đang mang thai. James buộc phải cưới cô ấy để cứu công ty và mẹ khỏi sự sụp đổ. Diệp đau lòng phải đối mặt với sự thật. Cô bị giằng xé với tình yêu và cảm giác bị phản bội. James cũng đang bị kẹt giữa uống và anh không lựa chọn và cảm giác bị tội lỗi. Điện các anh, liệu tình yêu của họ có thể vượt qua sự tàn nhẫn này? Hãy sẽ bị chính sự thật. Ý chi kết, hãy đăng ký kênh để giúp tôi đạt được 1000 follow.